Alright, YouTube and trinis and non-trinis and whoever watching this video. So this video is called the hardest. So just like the hardest things in like Trinidadian culture and lifestyle thing. So the first thing we can start off on is carnival season. So the hardest now is when you see a man jump out in the new shoes and the new jeans and the new jersey and he buy a snapback and thing and he don't have money to pay the rent for your house. That's the hardest. That's the hardest hard. The second hardest now. Carnival season. You're walking on the road and thing, and you see somebody getting on bad, and when you watch, it's a big thing pushing bumper and turn on man. That's the hardest. That's the hardest. Oh, the hardest right now is this song. Right. Ha! Marshall, boy, Marshall. Marshall is the hardest. He needs to win road marketing. Everybody else to take a sleep. If you don't agree with that, just stop watching the video. Alright? Because everybody don't know Marshall is the hardest. He's the hardest hard. The hardest are the hard. What's the next hardest way? The hardest is if you go to buy doubles and all the apple J done. That's the hardest. That's a deal breaker. The hardest is if you go to buy doubles on a holiday, on a public holiday, and you realize that all your local doubles vendors closed. So then you had to venture out and go to Davy and possibly get a Davy doubles, which everybody knows not the best doubles. The hardest way. The hardest is when you have to depend on a Davy doubles. Davy is a good thing, but not the doubles. But the hardest is if on a public holiday you can't find doubles anyway, and you go Davy, and even Davy don't have doubles. That's the hardest, because now you're barely in your hand. The hardest is when you go down Sando and you see a best thing. You got to pull up on it. And when you start to talk to she, yeah, like she's a Guyanese. I bought, and you run. The hardest is when it have more Guyanese in Trinidad than in Guyana. That's the hardest hard. That real hard. The hardest is being a Trini and getting mistaken for a Guyanese. That's real hard. Real hard. What's the next hard one, way? Let me see. But the hardest is I was in Trinidad with my friends. We was driving and thing. This man look outside the car, watch the front wheel, watch inside, and he real scared. What happening? The flicking wheel of the car wobbling and you fly off. That's the hardest. Because only in Trinidad, you go buy a car and you wouldn't take it to get service before you drive it. That's the hardest. That's not only the hardest, that's just real stupidness. The hardest was me and my partners going to take a drink. Wake up the next day. All we hangover. Everybody need to bathe. Based on your one bathroom. So what we do? The rain falling, we grab a bar of soap and we go outside and we take our bathe. You know why? Because it's Trinidad and that's the hardest. That's life. The what's the next hard one? The next hard one. Thinking about this all day. Because see I don't script anything. When I do it, top of my head. That's the hardest. The hardest is everybody else when they're making videos, they start to sing and script it, and for me, it's just from the top of my head. So let's make it real hard. Not the hardest, but hard. Hard like Big Stone. No, the hardest is when you're living in the US and people figure out that you're Trinidadian and they ask you to speak for them now. They say something. That's always like the typical response. Oh, you're Trinidadian? Say something for me. What do you mother ask you want me to say? Eh? Something. They say something, so I watch them and say something. Oh God, at least give me a sentence to work with. Now help me, help you. That's the hardest. The hardest is when you use the only, well not the only, when you use one of 5 trainees living in Connecticut. That's real hard. That's the hardest. The hardest is being a trainee and not having a big trainee population. That is kill you. Slowly but surely, it is kill you. You just had to have your trainee flag and thing, and you just had to watch it every day and hope and pray that you go on vacation sometime soon. Um, the hardest is going a week without roti, right? This feel like you're going through withdrawal. You just had to bowl up in a corner and rock back and forth and pray for that roti. The hardest is if you're that trainer and you can't bust a wine. If you have no rhythm whatsoever and you can't whine, that's the hardest. Like if you're that trainer and you can't whine, you might as well, I don't know, give up the belt, give up the title, give up your ID card, give up your birth certificate, and become a Guyanese because you're not trainee. And this is no offense to Guyanese. This is not a video to bash Guyanese people at all. I have a lot of Guyanese friends and I not to bash them, but everybody know the hardest is if you don't know that Trini and Guyanese have the biggest love-hate relationship. We both love to hate each other. Like we just happen to be friends, but we also clash on a lot of issues, a lot of topics, a lot of politics, a lot of things. Trinis and Guyanese clash a lot because we're so similar that we always compare and compete. So like I said, this is not a bash Guyanese people. The hardest is when you need to put out a disclaimer in your video so that Guyanese people don't make a big response and shout out and that's the hardest, that's the hardest. What again boy? The next hard is hard. But the hardest is I meet a girl who tell everybody she went Parvati. And she tell everybody Parvati was the best school in Trinidad. That is the hardest. That was real hard. Because I had to stand up and listen to she. And in the back of my head, just like kinda I can't really show she up on anything, but that's the hardest, see? That's real hard because they Parvati. It's the best school in Trinidad. No, I know it have plenty Parvati girls and thing. They must be feel like it's the best in Trinidad. Wonderful, yes, okay, sure. No. No. Alright, no. Don't say that. And yeah, that concludes the hardest video. I think of any other hardest things, I'll make a hardest part 2, but that is hardest for you. Bitters.